Honorable Minister Education, Government of India, Shri Pradhanji, my senior colleague, Srimati Vinda Sarup ma'am, Shri Dhir Jingranji, and esteemed members of LLF, people who've been associated with how do we reach out to all the children in the country vis-a-vis with respect to language. They're all here. My colleagues from the Department of School Education and Literacy, ladies and gentlemen. At the outset, I would want to congratulate and give my best wishes to LLF for completing 10 years. I think in the NEP parlance, you will be in class 5. So you are finishing your prep and you are going into your middle stage of education. And I wish you that you have a good middle stage as well as secondary and then higher education. So best wishes for your future roadmap and for all your future endeavors. I'll begin with a couple of digressions. I grew up in a family where the mother tongue was Bhojpuri. But at home we spoke Hindi. Until class 5, I think I had mixed medium of instruction. Subsequently, I went to a boarding school and I studied English after that. But even today, I find that when it comes to thinking about something which is extremely important to me, more often than not, my mind short circuits and I start thinking in Hindi. And I'll give you a particular example. If I have to count fast, then either I could do it 1, 2, 3, 4, or I can do 1, 2, 3, 4. But today also I find that if I have to count really fast, my mind short circuits and I count in Hindi. I don't quite know, but then the mind is very complex. And the way we learn language, it impacts us in so many ways that we don't even quite understand. And there's a whole life to get conscious of. So that is the point number 1 I would want to say. The second point I want to say predates the National Education Policy of 2020. In the early 80s, when I was in school, I read a book by Jacob Bronowski, The Ascent of Man. And much later, BBC came out with a very beautiful serial on that. I don't know if you have not seen it, then you may see it. Bronowski writes that when a human baby is born, he or she is completely helpless. You see a calf being born, and the calf comes out of the womb of the mother, and it starts running in about 10 minutes' time. But a human baby is almost useless for almost about 2 years of time. And this is precisely because the way the brain is developing. And if one were to actually look at the data, it says that at birth, the average baby's brain is about a quarter of the size of the average adult brain. It doubles in size in the first year. It keeps growing to about 80% of adult size by age 3. And by the time we are about 6 years or 7 years, it grows to almost about 90%. And the NEP very clearly says that this ECCE period is extremely important because this is where the synapses are being formed. But Bronowski says something else too. He says that if you don't learn a language till the time you are 3 years or 4 years of age, then chances are that you will never be able to learn any language in the rest of your life. So learning a language in the initial part is extremely important. And when I read Tarzan the Ape Man, I was really wondering that how did he actually get to speak much later in his life when he spent his time along with animals in the first part when he learned no language at all. The point I'm saying is that the way we imbibe language to a very large extent is dependent on the way we learn language. So language is just not a medium of instruction. It is the basic foundation of imbibing knowledge. And while I was sitting there, I was reading on the screen what Halliday has to say about it. And I think some information was being flashed on the screen with respect to holiday. I'm so glad that much later, when I read the National Education Policy 2020, I was immediately reminded about Bronowski. And the way the National Education Policy 2020 has approached knowledge and learning of language in the most scientific manner is perhaps one of the most commendable thing in the act, in the policy. The second point which I want to highlight is that, when you begin well, it always ends well. So for us in the Department of School Education and Literacy, what is keeping us occupied under the able guidance and leadership of the Honorable Minister is that how do I get the foundational literacy and numeracy right? This 5 plus 3 plus 3 plus 4, this 5 is extremely important. So by the time the child completes the age of 2, he must have good working knowledge in any language the person speaks at home and is taught in school, and a basic understanding of numeracy. But while I say this, I'm also aware of the fact that language and learning is something extremely complex in our country. If you look at the Indian Constitution, we have 22 Bharatiya Bhashas, but there are 126 languages in the country which are spoken by more than 10,000 people. And here at the department, we've been trying to construct primers for all these languages, so children, when they go to school, they have access to their local language. So once you go to a school, you must learn in your mother tongue, but the mother tongue and the regional language also has a very complex relationship which we need to be aware of. Bharatiya Bhasha comes over it, and NEP talks about the power of multilingualism. So once you know a language, then you are going to pick up a second language, you're going to pick up a third language, and we've been talking about a 3-language formula for a long time. It only means that 2 of the languages in that 3-language has to be Bharatiya Bhasha, and 1 language could be a language which is not a Bharatiya Bhasha. And the choice is entirely left to the person who is there in school wanting to learn a language. This is extremely important. Then the NEP also talks about foreign language, and it does mention languages. And multilingualism, to a very large extent, it adds to our cognitive power. And this cognitive power is going to help us navigate into the very complex life which we are going to lead. Many things can be said about the National Education Policy 2020, but I'm sure that most of us are here because we would want to hear our Honorable Minister as to what the idea of Government of India is with respect to learning a language, how the National Education Policy 2020 is being implemented, and how NEP 2020 is going to power us to 2047, when India is going to get converted into, transformed into a Vikasit Bharat, a resolution often shared with us by the Honorable Prime Minister. So at this stage, I would want to say thank you to all of you. I would wish LLF all the best for the coming years, and may we all profit from your experience working with at the grassroots level. And language means that we must imbibe language in the right spirit. We also must learn to share our views, express our views, and create a society which is not only progressive, but also very humane. Thank you.